what are the other? Has there been, recent rise, recent
Well,
rise
I,
in
I was
anti-Semitism? What are the different factors involved, and why is there still anti-Semitism after all these years?
well, look, there's always anti-Semitism. It's interesting because many of our own
No, I
laws.
ask it because is it not important to understand the roots in order to
No,
understand?
of course it is. It's a very important. I talk
Right.
about it all the time.
Right.
No, I about to say that until about 6 or 7 years ago, even many of our most loyal supporters would say to me, "Hey, what are you worried about anti-Semitism? It's no longer a problem, particularly in America, you know." And I would say, "Look, thank God we've made tremendous progress. I think we played a role in that progress. We should be, but I said, don't. I would say, don't be complacent." And then I would get into the point you asked about. Why is it that it may come back, which it has? And I think anti-Semitism shares characteristics with other forms of hatred, but it has the unique element of the idea that the Jew is not, for the anti-Semite, the Jew is not something that he or she appears to be. The reality of the Jew is something hidden, something all-powerful, something evil. And once you see that, you look at Jews that way, then it opens up a Pandora's box of blaming Jews for everything under the sun, even in contradictory fashion. Sometimes they accuse us of communism, sometimes of capitalists. There's the infamous anti-Semitism without Jews in places where there are no Jews. They blame it on the Jews. The fact is that this fundamental way, and where that comes from, it probably starts with the whole Christian stuff back 2,000 years ago, but it really developed in the Middle Ages, this idea of blaming the Jews for everything. You know, the Black Plague, the Jews were accused of poisoning the well, you know, the using the blood. Well, all of that stuff was the idea that reality is not what it appears to be when it comes to the Jew. And that means you can conjure up anything you like, especially, and my favorite word for modern anti-Semitism is anxiety. When there's social, political, or economic anxiety taking over in a society, you can be sure that anti-Semitism could emerge. And that's basically what happened in the last 10 years, where partly related to the internet, partly related to political leadership or the lack thereof. And also, one of my favorite subjects, if you will, to talk about is the loss of shame about anti-Semitism as we get further and further away from the Holocaust. You know, the first 50 years or so after the Holocaust, anti-Semitism didn't disappear, but people were reluctant to act it out because of the shame of what they saw in Auschwitz and all. Well, now so many people, it's like ancient history, and so that also is an element. So you have a bunch of things, the nature of anti-Semitism, social media, political leadership, the loss of shame. You have it all coming together in what I refer to as a perfect storm. And so it's sad, but shouldn't be shocked that it's got. And the answer is why anti-Semitism, you could never say anti-Semitism will never come back, because it just suits too many purposes that have nothing to do with Jews. And anytime political leaders, cultural leaders, others feel a need to find something that they could rally numbers of people around to blame for all their problems, you know, look at COVID. I mean, during COVID, there were so many efforts to blame Israel, to blame Jews for that kind of thing. So unfortunately, it's going to be, but I don't want to suggest that until the last few years, we had made tremendous progress. I often describe the period starting from the late 60s until about 2010 as the most comfortable period for Jews, not only in the world today, but I would argue in the history of the diaspora. I'm talking about Jews in America. That Jewish life in America became normalized almost in a way that was unheard of anywhere else. And even here now, we're seeing that. I find myself very often trying to calm down some of our supporters, because I feel sometimes people get a little hysterical about it. I mean, I'm glad they're paying attention to it, but you know, I also want to keep things in perspective. America is still a great place for Jews, but we'll see what the future brings.